Welcome back to another episode of Hello Ladies, where feminism meets pro wrestling. We are your hostesses with the mostesses. I am Sabrina.
And I'm MJ.
And per our opener, and do your tidings and like, subscribe, share, do the little dance,
Comment.
make a little love consensually. Get down tonight. I just realized because of like me and my weird brain, we now have like our opening and our closing involve lyrics to just copywriting or to copyrighted shit.
Sure, yeah, why not?
But today we are talking about, well, what I've just been calling queer joy, but I think MJ, you're the one who masterminded this.
The
So
gayest moments in wrestling, which we are taking back because, spoiler alert, if you search that on the internet, you're going to get some weird shit. And it's not going to be relevant to queer wrestlers, queer joy in wrestling. It's going to just be a lot of like almost really closeted men commenting on how gay wrestling moves are in their opinion.
I just want to say, I think it's really brave that you Googled that. That's going to mess up
Yeah,
your algorithm for who knows how long.
maybe I'm just too impulsive and didn't think it through. But I appreciate the compliment nonetheless.
We're going to say brave. It was brave. Brave choice. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So the gayest moments in wrestling. So we are going to be covering a lot of things. I was torn. This is actually one of the hardest episodes that we've done that I've had to really think on and research. And it's been especially hard because unfortunately, a lot of the top moments in recent history are relatively recent because wrestling is a spoiler alert is a very cis male centric, you know, hobby activity sport, you could say. So it's frustrating to look back on the history. Um, but yeah, let's get into it.
Let's
But there's
dive
also
right in.
beautiful spotlights. So I don't want to just cast a negative light over everything. There's a lot of really beautiful moments, but I also feel like there's going to be moments throughout this episode where we do touch on some problematic stuff just that did happen. So
Are you starting it off?
oh, you mean I didn't just need to do a long intro for nothing?
Nope, I'm kicking you into the deep end.
On where to start. I'll start positive first. So Hoodslam is a wrestling promotion in California, Northern California, that was started in 2010 by Dark Sheik, who's fabulous. It's literally 14 years old now. They do shows regularly, like every couple months. They put on like big shows. They recently had one actually out in my neck of the woods in Arizona, and so they're spreading like their reach. They're on Fight TV, which is really cool. And it's Dark Sheik has kind of dubbed it the accidental phenomenon because it wasn't supposed to be as big as it was. So I just think it's really great that a trans person was able to have this amazing thing created that just took off. Like everybody talks about Hoodslam. It's like a independent wrestling phenomenon. So even though it feels like it's on a smaller scale, I love that it's just on like this fringe, in the way like that it's just like it's a cool like it's not even like a best kept secret because if you get really niche and like love wrestling, then I don't know. I instantly thought of Hoodslam when we did this episode. So
Ah,
yay for Hoodslam.
that's me snapping my fingers. For those who I'm sure that did not pick up on the there we go. Now I've accidentally like upset MJ because she does not like ASMR and I'm here snapping into the mic.
I couldn't even really hear it.
Never mind then. Well, I'm glad at
I
least
thought I
I
thought you were
told.
doing it on my behalf because it was like silent.
Right. Maybe I'm just a quiet snapper.
Maybe.
That sounds like the weirdest. Never mind. Nope. Moving away from that. In that same vein of what you were talking about with your first one, I have
Mhm.
Effie's Big Gay Brunch.
Yeah, you do.
Yes. If you've been listening to us, you know we're both fans of Effie. Effie's sign is
Is
up
dad.
here, or fan behind me right there.
Wait, the way you paused, I thought you were gonna say Effie is daddy.
Oh, Effie is behind me. I got this very special guest. He's just popping in. That's it. That's all we're doing with Effie. No. But the um big gay brunch was something I think I learned. It was either that I learned about it from you or from Cultaholic. It's hard to tell now. But certainly MJ has spoken glowingly of the big gay brunch. So I went during WrestleMania week and brought my friends Priscilla and Tyler, and it was the first ever indie show that they've seen, which I think has really
Sets the
given them.
bar very high. That
Yes,
sets the bar so high.
yes, because it was such a safe space, like um and it was such a diverse crowd. There were a lot of women or female presenting folks in the
Yeah.
crowd. Um yeah, it was just wonderful, and people smelled great. So if she go like I have not I God, I don't I'm going to an indie show this weekend, so I don't want to like jinx myself. But I have not had the experience MJ has had, or the experience I've had in like honestly large WWE or AEW shows where people have not accessed deodorant. So um, could it be that, um, you know what? I'm gonna say that queer people and people on who are traditionally not marketed to by wrestling have better hygiene. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, that's facts. Piggybacking off of what you said, because I had a feeling you were gonna say big gay brunch. But honestly, one of my favorite moments I've ever filmed, any clips I have from any wrestling which I've ever been to, was Effie's Big Gay Brunch 7 in Chicago. Because it was actually right after Sunny Kiss, shortly after Sunny Kiss had been released from AEW. And there's a moment that's so beautiful where there was a big match and it was Sunny Kiss and Effie was in it. And Sunny Kiss was just like crying in the corner. It was just like this really like powerful moment because you got to see Sunny do this thing that they're so good at, And then Effie was just giving them their flowers completely and just talking about and like gave everybody that was in the ring. And I cried so much because it was talking about celebrating queer joy and just like how I'm gonna cry. It was just so beautiful and just seeing like the love that he was showing for everybody that was involved and the people that were in the crowd and like that this is a safe space, like this is ours, like this thing that Effie like set out to like carve out and that GCW also supported him on, like so all of those things, like it was just a really powerful moment and it was just Effie was giving a lot of praise to Sunny for just being amazing at what they do no matter where they are, and it was just really empowering and it was a beautiful moment. So that's to me personally is one of my favorite moments in queer wrestling history. And I got to be there for that. It's like one of the most it was really beautiful.
Seeing Sunny Kiss Russell live is fantastic.
Yeah.
They put on one hell of a show. Like their presentation of like their move set and everything is completely different than any other wrestler, especially ones that have been on mainstream television. And I will never forgive a certain promoter for not utilizing Sunny Kiss to their full potential. But, this is supposed to be joyful, blah, blah, blah. I will move on from that.
Yeah. I went to one funny thing though that I loved was that it was a combination. Like I went with all straight people. Like it was just a gaggle of straight people to this show, and they loved it. Like, and they were big fans of like Effie and Big Gay Brunch. They watched every single one, so this wasn't like a culture shock at all to them. But Sunny Kiss came out, and Niece was next to me, and Niece was like, Sunny Kiss has the best ass in professional wrestling. And then people that like these like straight dudes that were next to me, they're like, yep, 100%. I was just like, I don't know. It was just like a really like funny moment, but it was just like a cool, I don't know. I guess we're all just collectively bonding over Sunny Kiss having a great backside, but it was just one of those things where it was like the whole air and the whole culture, the whole vibe there, no matter what, was incredibly positive. Everyone was praising all the wrestlers and like all of the
Hmm.
spots. And like, so even if you're not queer and you go to these shows, it's just like a really accepting, open, beautiful space. It's just really cool.
Yes. Yeah. It was um phenomenal. Like what like the energy that's there and that is cultivated, and it's amazing getting not only for fans to have a safe place to be, but for wrestlers to have a safe
Yeah.
place to be. Um yeah. Was that your number two, that experience, or do you have something?
Oh, I've got a whole bunch. Oh man. Um, I'm gonna skew a little problematic for a second because it's a tough situation because I've been waiting the whole time I made this list. I was like, I'm gonna see that look from Sabrina so many times during this podcast episode. Um, it's interesting, but I think it this is so tough because I feel like it begs like having a conversation about the gayest moments in wrestling involve people who are queer, better or worse in a sense, which is frustrating. But I was going to talk about who the first WWE Intercontinental Champion was. Do you know who that was?
Pat Patterson, who won it in a
Yeah.
fake I think they said it happened in Brazil or something,
Mhm.
and there he was just given the belt. But
Yeah. Yeah. So Pat was behind the scenes openly gay, but not in the whole time I'm going to talk about Pat Patterson. I'm going to get like death glares from Sabrina. I already know.
well, not to completely did you ever see like some fans definitely knew, because I remember when I was a kid, my uncle telling me that Pat Patterson was gay. Um,
Yeah.
but he didn't like publicly come out until
Yeah.
did you watch, oh, what was it? Like it was
The
that
house, Legends house.
Legends House, yeah.
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 And it was like all casual around the table. It was just like that's like your big moment. And yeah, it was crazy.
Hmm.
So yeah. I actually really liked Legends House. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of missed that show.
Oh yeah, same. Roddy Piper like just howling at the moon.
Yeah. I need to, I've actually been thinking, I was like, I need to rewatch this.
It's so good slash wackadoodly.
It's wackadoodle time. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's so thinking about Pat Patterson made me think about what you had said before about Swerve when we talked about Swerve. How when you're the first at something, now Pat's is a little bit different, obviously. Like Swerve is black. He cannot change that he is black. Pat Patterson still is a white cis male, but he is obviously a gay man. So he could kind of, I don't know. It was something that he could essentially hide from the general public to still get ahead, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it reminded me of how when you talked before about when you are a trailblazer in some aspect, right, that you're going to yield to problematic behavior. And that's not to justify the things that he's done other than that. I'm not talking about that being related at all, but like I think about watching Young Rock and being really frustrated. Did you ever watch Young Rock?
Oh yeah.
Because of the way that The Rock talks about Pat Patterson so fondly, and in every interview still continues to when he talks about Pat Patterson and how there's just like this disconnect. I think about it in the same vein of like us on this podcast, how we used to do a sign off with John Cena, and ever since he kind of came out in support for Vince McMahon, it's like we have like these beloved wrestling figures like John Cena and The Rock, and they're making excuses for problematic behavior within wrestling culture. And I just, yeah, it's one of those things that like as frustrating it is to talk about, like I'm not trying to make excuses for Pat Patterson in any way, but it was just when I think about queer history, I do think about that being a big deal that he quote unquote won the IC belt in that way because it's going to go down in the record books that he was the first queer man to hold that belt.
Pat Patterson's how we have the Royal Rumble. Like
I know.
his contributions to wrestling, much like a certain Vince McMahon, are undeniable.
Yeah.
Absolutely undeniable.
Yeah.
And it sucks, like when doing specifically like Young Rock, I completely believe those were his experiences with Pat Patterson, like as a kid,
Yeah,
whatever. Um, they could have added like even a screen at the end, like you know how sometimes like a show will talk about something and at the end it'll be like if you are a survivor, go to this.
sure, sure,
Like
sure.
I think even doing something like that would have gone a long way. Um but
Yeah,
he has not done that. And like again, I'm not downplaying the fact that like it is complicated when someone you love is good to you and a monster to other people. That
yeah.
has to be a lot to wrestle with. Um,
Hmm.
that being said, if you're specifically a public figure, unfortunately, talk to your PR team. Like, don't just keep going out and singing this person's praises. That's
Yeah,
not ideal. If
yeah.
you're personally struggling with that, talk to a get I'm of the firm belief that everyone when they're 30 should be assigned a therapist like automatically. But you know, go to therapy, talk it out and work through it. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, Pat Patterson, it's everyone loves the Royal Rumble.
I
Everyone loves the
know.
Royal Rumble. And but he wrecked lives.
He did. Yeah. This is why it was obviously very conflicting for me to put that on this list because I there's so many things that I could spotlight that are problematic in wrestling. Not that I was trying to, but when I went back and looked at queer history, some of the things that came up that was being spotlighted was Pat Patterson. And I just remember reading and going like, ugh. But I thought about how it connected to how we talked about Swerve before in that same way that when you are a trailblazer and you have like you to fit this mold, you are in addition to other problematic things, you are doing other problematic things to secure your position in that way. And like, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Yeah. Um, so I have one that's kind of this did not happen in a wrestling ring. It happened at a wrestling convention. It starts out
Okay.
bad, but it gets good.
Okay.
So Giselle, there we go. Not Giselle. Jazelle Shaw is a TNA wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
part of the Knockouts division,
Mm-hmm.
stunning fashionista, with an incredible move set. Um, she is a trans woman, and I think she might have come out actually by being in a pride parade, like
Yeah.
publicly. I think that was how, which that is an epic way to be like, ta-da.
Yeah.
But at a wrestling convention, there was another wrestler. Like, I don't even think that I think it's a former wrestler. I don't remember who it is at this point. Sadly, there's been a lot of wrestlers who have said and done shitty things. Um,
Yeah.
but they had made some transphobic comments to Giselle. And what we then saw was the wrestling community rally around and behind her for the most part, which was fantastic to see. Like, I feel like it's something that we wouldn't have seen even 10 years ago. People just outright like wrestlers themselves getting on Twitter and just slamming the person who did it and talking about how um like this isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, I feel like you have something to say. You were doing the face.
No, no. No,
Okay.
I don't have anything to say.
Okay. I was like, am I like horribly forgetting something? Like
No, no, you're good. You're good.
I
This
got
this
really nervous
conversation
with saying that. I was like,
no, this conversation is just in general like so I told Sabrina too, I might have just mentioned it, but this is like the most extensive research I've had to do because so much like was weird about this topic or was inaccurate or was like it reminds me of how there's just not like, unless like the people in like a marginalized community keep record of it, it's not going to be remembered by like a lot of society. And like I think about how like I'm really into scrapbooking, and historically that's why people started keeping scrapbooks, right? Is to like, we want to remember like these things that happen and pass it on. Like we want the history to be shared. And I think about like, I could go on a whole tangent about this, but there's so many people that like don't have their histories represented, right? And it made me upset researching this because there's so much like wonderful things that like we'll never know about queer wrestling history because it hasn't been documented, or that,
Mhm.
you know, so it's really emotional for me. It brings up a lot of feelings talking about it.
That's completely valid. Yeah.
Yeah. So if my face looks weird, it's because I'm processing a lot of thoughts and things. So it's not against you.
You don't have not everything's about you, Sabrina.
No, I don't mean like that.
No. What do you have next?
I think, oh, I was gonna wear my fucking acclaim shirt for this video and I
Oh, I
forgot.
was
So
supposed to remind you. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I forgot. But anyway, we're gonna talk a little bit about scissoring right now and how much we love Anthony Bowens. So, um, I cried and I still actually tear up when I think about it. But like I've always been like a big Anthony Bowens stan. I love the acclaim. And when he won the tag team belts with Max Caster, I cried and like the pink confetti came down. It was like, but it's just so cool, like such a beautiful moment. And they did that promo after, you know, shortly after, where they were talking about he addressed the camera, you know, people who he was already openly gay, and he's been in a relationship with Michael for I believe over 10 years now. But he addressed the camera and was like, because I'm gay. And then you see like Max Caster in the back, just like, yeah, like he always does that in promos where he's like, yeah, kind of like what he said. And so he's doing that in support of Anthony, and it was cool. So it's just, and Billy Gunn was there. They were all just like really like rallying behind him, and it was cool. And then we saw like the whole funny thing with like Harley Cameron, where, you know, she's in the ring like jokingly trying to hit on him, and he's like, I'm gay, and the whole crowd is literally chanting, he's gay, he's gay. And
Hmm.
it's just like, this is on like live television that I'm watching this, and the crowd is rallying in support of Anthony Bowens, you know?
Yeah. It's it's so beautiful to see that, like, because for so long, whenever we would see um queer people in the media or in
Yeah,
wrestling, they were the bad guys. And like
sure.
a core component of them being bad was their queerness.
Yeah,
And we see Anthony Bowens, who, I mean, the claimed are beloved, and
yeah,
his queerness is being celebrated, like, because it
yeah,
is part of his total package. It is not a detractor. It is, something to be celebrated along with him. Um, and
yeah,
yeah, it was how far we have come. We have not gone far enough, but
sure.
progress has been made. Thank God.
Yeah. It's funny too, because as I was talking it through, I connected like this parallel between Dom and Liv and Harley and Anthony in that moment. I thought about the two completely opposite ways that they're handling it. Like Harley was exhibiting like kind of like creepy behavior, almost like borderline predatory, right? Hitting on him in a way that was like, no. And then you see everything that's happening with Liv and Dom right now in WWE that's being like, it's mixed reviews, right? Not everybody's celebrating it. There are a lot of people in the comments that are like, if this happened to a woman, like there'd be riots. Like this would not fly. So it's like, why are we accepting this behavior? Because
Mm-hmm.
Liv's doing it to Dom, you know? But then you also get people who are like, this is the best thing Liv Morgan's ever done. Or like, Dom is one lucky man, you know? And you're just like, he's not a willing participant in this storyline, you know?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it as I was talking about it, that like the crowd is rallying in support versus, and this is not a tribalistic AEW versus WWE thing, just to be clear, but it's interesting how instantly like we shut it down, right? And then now in WWE it's getting drawn out into this like long creepy storyline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I, that's an entire episode in and of itself. I have so much rage. men deserve safe spaces too, and WWE is going out of their way to make sure they don't have one. But
Yeah.
that is
Yeah. Sorry, so great. I know it's a lot.
I'm
We
just
should do an episode about it. We should. There's a lot that we could talk about that.
we shouldn't. God knows. I I'm having a really hard time like keeping my soapbox pushed over there right now, so I'm not climbing on it to lecture. But yeah, yeah. Anthony Bowens though, what a great dude.
What a gem of a man.
Yeah. And he has like this has nothing to do with anything really other than like he has the sweetest stinking face. Like
Yeah.
I he has one of those faces where I'm just like, but could you really be a heel? Like, look at you. Look at your sweet little face.
Yeah,
Like some
I
people
know.
just have those faces. And I'm just like, but you're so cute. I want to put you in my pocket and keep you safe for forever.
So fitting that he's a face because he's got literally like an eternal baby face. That
Oh
man's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
he's gonna be like 50 and look the same, you know?
I also think like he could easily be the spokesperson for anything he wanted to be. Like
Yeah.
teeth whitener, check. Face wash, check. Old Spice, check, check. I would buy a vacuum cleaner off of that man. Like whatever.
Did you know he was one of the faces of Fenty, like a Fenty men's line?
I did
Yeah.
not know that. That clearly Rihanna and I saw the same thing.
Same page, same page.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
All right.
totally.
Um, all right. So my next one is so Shayna Baszler. Um,
Oh my God, of course.
yeah. I'm gonna pull up the shirt a bit. A BRE shirt right now, which is Best Roommates Ever, which is Shayna, Jessamine, Dakota, and Mia Yim. Most of those women are part of the queer community and like outedly so. Two of them are in a relationship, being Shayna and Dakota. Um,
Mhm.
but Shayna has never, even when she was in MMA, and probably because she was in MMA, um, there's like one interview I think where she talks about being bisexual. Like she never brings it up. Um,
Mhm.
but at the same time, like it I'm always when people are like, Shayna's gay? Like, you have eyes, right? Like, yes, she is a queer woman on some form of the spectrum. But she had an epic push in NXT and won my heart. And so some of our friends on in the wrestling community as well. I know it's so funny because there's so many straight women where we've all kind of looked at Shayna and we're just like, I get it. Like, I'd give it a whirl. I would give it a whirl.
I'd give it a whirl.
Yep.
Yeah, you and Miss Chrissy Ann are self-proclaimed Shayna sexuals.
Oh
So,
yes. That's what Shayna calls her fans, Shayna sexuals. So um,
mhm.
but yes, big time. Oh yeah. But Shayna has just done, I mean, she had an epic MMA career, both before UFC and well, I think when it went to what was that MMA Fight House reality TV show?
I don't know if I know that.
Oh, well, there's some sort of thing, and she wound up being on there. Rhonda was, of course, the team captain for the women. And the
Mhm.
funny thing is, Rhonda was actually inspired by Shayna's work to get into MMA and UFC, like, and yeah, but then Ronda is very much so a conventionally attractive woman, also a complete killer with her moveset, and went very, very far. Unfortunately, like in general, people who break down barriers like that tend to also have pretty faces. It is what it is. But yes, so it's interesting that Miranda wound up being the coach of someone who had been doing it longer than her and was she was a fan of. Although we also saw that in WWE's Tough Enough when like Daniel Bryan was one of the rookies. So I think the Miz.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
That's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, basically there's so many queer women specifically in WWE who have been celebrated, and like that part of who they are is, it seems like very much so up to them, like how much of that bleeds into the ring. You have
Yeah.
people like Sonya Deville who, you know, she is very open and, you know, wants to be representing the company as a lesbian.
Yeah.
And then you have people who are a little more quiet about it. And if I had to guess, and based on what I heard Shayna say in that one interview, like she was just like, I don't want that to be the defining part of me. Like, you know, people don't basically walk around being like, I'm straight and have that
Yeah.
be like their defining quality. I think to her, she wants to make sure she is celebrated for the right reasons. I'd argue that you can do both, but you know, to each individual their own in this sort of thing.
Yeah. Agreed. It's interesting how one thing I had on my list is a wrestler that I love that I actually got to stand next to and I was really nervous next to was Fred Rosser, formerly known as Darren Young. Um, you think about that, it was 2013 when he had that infamous TMZ interview that he just casually was like, well, I'm gay and I'm really happy, like that was what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that all the time. And then John Cena got interviewed right after, was like, that's cool. Like it was just like, which was kind of cool. But I think about that in contrast now, 11-year difference, right? We have people like Sonya Deville. We like if you look at like the women's division, there's a lot of queerness. Like even just in WWE, look at the women's division, there's a lot of like openly queer women in that division.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's really cool to see where we've come from, because it was very taboo when, Darren Young said those things. And, but who knows whether it hurt his career, which isn't right. I'm not justifying that, of course, in any way. But when you're open about things in industries that aren't ready to hear those things, then there are almost these consequences, right, for that. So I don't know. But I was always really like into like the primetime players. And then when Darren Young came out, I like lost my shit. So that was really cool. And then getting to stand next to Fred Rosser at an event and just knowing that like he was like next to me and I got to watch him wrestle and like run out and like it was really cool. But and then just seeing like even if you're in a place that does not respect you and accept you, like now he's at New Japan like doing like badass matches. So it's like it's really like this message of hope for queer people that like if something does not work out for you, if somebody tries to shut a door in your face for being the way that you are, for being authentically yourself, there are other paths available that are ready to accept you and love you. And like, so it was just like a really cool full circle message how when he got let go, I was really upset. But you see that everything works out. There's not like a one mold for everybody. So it's a cool message in the long run.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. I haven't My cat Scarlet rubbed herself on my face before we started. And since the beginning of I've been battling feeling like hair attached to my lipstick. So if you're watching this, that's what's going
That's
on.
what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm melting from the heat and battling cat hair on my lipstick. which I've
Yeah.
now got on my chin. Okay. Moving in. Although I did want to say, like, while you were next to him, were you like just beaming, like trying to implant from your mind into his, like, I love you, you're amazing.
Kind of, yeah. I was totally giving him all the vibes because he was also next to Moxie, who is like they were tagging that night, and Moxie's like one of my favorite indie wrestlers of all time, and they wrestle in Arizona, and so they wrestle frequently for like AWF. So I'm at their shows all the time. Just the whole presentation, the aesthetic, like the pageantry. I'm obsessed. And so like they were tagging, and so I was literally just like losing my shit. I literally turned to the AWF champion is Chubby Deb, who I know, and like I turned to him and I was like, I'm freaking the fuck out right because I'm next to like two people who I just think are like the coolest people ever, you know?
Mm-hmm. That is awesome.
Yeah.
It was
And
so
then
hard
Chubby's
for me
always
after
so
I
casual. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say Chubby's so casual, like just go talk to them. I'm like, what? You know,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I didn't They were trying to sell merch to people, so I wasn't gonna just walk over and be like, oh.
I love you.
Yeah, totally. And then just walk
I'm not buying anything. Bye.
Yeah.
This is awesome. It was so hard for me not to clap, like for
Oh, that's
chance.
funny. Yeah.
It's so like I'm sure it happens like the social conditioning we go through as wrestling fans. Like when
Yeah.
people say certain things, I can't help but like have stuff come tumbling out of my mouth sometimes, and it makes sense to nobody else around me usually. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
do 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 do.
Oh my God, that's so funny you say that because yesterday my dad totally rolled his eyes at me because he asked about a wrestler and he's like, are they a good guy or a bad guy? And I was like, they're a face, dad. And then he was like, and he just looked away from me. I was like, what? And my mom was like, he doesn't know what that means. And I was like, then why can't he just say he doesn't know what that means? Like to me, that's like common vernacular, but people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad's the one that got me into wrestling. So I was like, you don't know what that means? That's kind of like crazy, you know? At least to
Yeah,
me, with wrestling fan bias.
it's yeah, I feel like that was one of the like first things that although I started reading wrestling books young, so maybe that's why. Um,
Maybe.
or like our generation having the internet and seeing interviews with heel and face and all of that.
True.
Um, but yeah, when I I realized when Chelsea went with me to the Smash Masters show, the first one and the second one, I had to do the same thing where I would be like, "Oh, they're heel, bad guy, bad guy." We boo them because they're smart. That
That's
was the
funny.
guy's gimmick. Like I was like, he has like intelligent or something as part of his gimmick, and I was like, that means he's a bad guy. So us sitting here with our masters and your PhD, we have to boo the smart person. We're gonna talk down to everybody else.
I love that so much. I
Yeah.
also love that like Chelsea's getting into wrestling. That's so cool.
Oh, it brings me so much joy. Yeah. Um, is it my
Yes.
turn? Okay. Um, so I have, and I went back and forth on whether or not to put this one on there, but I
Yeah.
decided to go for it. I put the
Okay.
Golden Lovers. Um,